Good. All right. Finally got game week here. I know the players are excited. Get to put on the uniform. Should be a great day. Expecting a good crowd. And there's a lot of guys that are anxious, I think, to prove themselves. So should be fun on Saturday.
So, Rich, the guys that got eligibility last week with the federal case, so how big is that for you? Give us a little insight on what they can do, and Jamore Robinson, maybe, what do you know about his status?
Yeah, we're still waiting on him. The other guys are, we have our general counsel that's working with the NCAA and the Big 12 and our compliance department to make sure we're interpreting the judge's order correctly. Obviously, the order was favorable to those guys being able to play, but we're still in the middle. They're still discussing that. But Jamore has not practiced, but the other three are practicing.
So we'll give some insight into what they can do to help you at some point, if not.
Yeah, I mean they're all good players, all guys that we when we were talking to them and trying to get them to come to West Virginia, we all thought that they had they're all older guys that we thought had an opportunity to help us in certain positions.
You're going against a team that you don't know much about. They got new players. You got new players. You kind of go into it and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then we'll figure out how they react to that and then play off of it. Is that how you go about it?
Yeah, the first game is just there's so many unknowns, particularly if you're got 79 new players like we do, and it's a new system. They have 3 new coordinators, so they're going to, they could be something totally new too. You can anticipate, and they can anticipate maybe the schemes or something like that, but who's going to be doing it? I mean, there's it's a little guesswork on both ends, I guess. So, you got to play a game to find out, and that's the hardest part about the first game is you go live a little bit in camp, whatever, but it's still different during game day, and we'll find a lot about certain guys on Saturday.
What is the biggest unknown for a coach on game day for you, on your team?
Yeah, I think, even though we have officials at all of our padded practices and had a couple scrimmages with Big 12 officials, and you're still in a game, it's managed a little bit different. We've tried to prepare them the best we can. It'd be great to have a preseason game like the NFL, 1 or 2 of those to kind of sort it out, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. So we'll do the best we can, then make sure we're ready to adjust.
Rich, you said on Friday that you're going to have coaches up in the boxes. Last practice
Right.
on Friday. What coaches are up in the boxes? Is Zach up in the box, or is he going to be on the sideline?
Zach's on the field. Yeah, I mean, I'll go through the whole list, but I got like 30 coaches that take up my whole time at a press conference. So, and there's a limit of how many guys can be on a headset. I don't know what that limit is either, but we have Zach. Zach will be on the field. Pat Kirkland with special teams will be on the field. Of course, I'll be on the field. And then offensively, I usually don't click over to the defensive side very much. Only if there's some point or something I'll make, but I'll be talking on the headset with Travis and Rhett.
Travis will be in the box.
Yeah.
In the Beanie Bowl, in terms of game operations, running all that stuff that I know you want to get a look at, anything new, different that you might tweak from previous years?
From an organizational standpoint?
The way everything runs, your game ops, all of that?
Yeah, I think we try to get a little bit crisper every year. Things we've always been a tempo team, so we're trying to get better with that on how we substitute guys. We got a lot of guys that we think have deserved the opportunity to play. So getting them in the game in the right situation, making sure they're paying attention. Zach's the same way. He has different packages on defense with different personnel, and so they've worked on a camp, worked on a Beanie Bowl with that kind of substitution as well. So a lot of that's it's. I don't want to say it's easier in a game because games go slower than practice because of all the TV timeouts and what have you, but it's also more critical that you're paying attention and our guys are laser focused. That's the biggest message for me to not just the players, but everybody that's on the sidelines or it's in the program. It's work time. We got to be focused on every play that's going on. And they've done a good job of getting ready for that, but game time will tell the truth.
You're playing a lot of players. Do you preoccupy yourself with that, or is it's on the assistant coaches for them?
It's more on the assistants, but I'll be certain if there's certain packages or certain plays we want certain guys in the game, we'll try to do that as well. And we don't want to sub just to sub. You know, they have to earn that spot, and then if we're in momentum or something like that, you don't want to obviously take guys out just to take them out. But we've been, like I said, real purposeful about offensively how we're subbing and when we're subbing, and I think defense has done the same thing.
Rich, what has it been like trying to scout Robert Morris? Can you take anything from last year, or are they so new it's not working?
Yeah, I mean, you could get an idea because the same head coach, he's been there, this is his 8th season, so you got to have an idea, okay, his culture, what he's been doing is probably going to be pretty similar, but 3 new coordinators, there's a lot of guesswork, even though their defensive coordinator was on the staff, so you think there would be some of the similar things going on there. A player standpoint, it's anybody's guess, but I'm sure it's for them too. You know, they've got a lot of new players. We got 79 new players, so whatever it is. So it's going to be an interesting first game.
How much harder is it to prepare for a week 1 game now versus maybe when you were first here? Like, how much harder is that preparation?
Well, it's a lot harder from a roster standpoint, but I think anyway you got to, certain guys, particularly if you're quarterbacks or you're looking at defensive backs or something, you're trying to evaluate strengths and weaknesses or what have you. You know, that it was easier to do with a returning starter when you got film on. But now everybody's got so much transition that makes it a little bit more difficult. And then obviously in the first couple games, the scheme part of it is always a little bit new and different. But it's just 11 guys. It shouldn't be that hard to figure it out, where they're going to be.
When you allow yourself an emotional moment before the game, how do you think you'll be able to handle getting out there again? Yeah,
I think it'll be a little surreal like it was the opening press conference, and I mentioned earlier on one of our taping our TV show that I don't want it to be about me or new coaches or whatever. I mean, it's about West Virginia. So, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be back here. I'm grateful for all the people on the staff. The fans have been, unreal. It's been phenomenal to be back and have everybody feel everybody's support for the program and for what we're trying to build here. So that part is going to be really nice. And then, but once we get on the field, it's, did we win the toss? Did we lose the toss? Where are we starting with and going from there?
Rich, after all these years, are you past any nervousness or anything like that, the opening game jitters?
No, I think it's, Bob, I think it's crazy enough. What is this, the 28th year as the head coach, and I don't know, 40 years total. There's still probably many or more nerves in this first game because it's the first game and you have so many unknowns than possible. You like to think, at this point, you're not nervous, but yeah, you're going to be. I think it's okay to be nervous for a little bit. I think it's okay for our players to be a little bit nervous because it means it matters to you, right? But you got to be focused too.
Now that gone through spring, gone through fall, you hear all the expectations around the country about this team. What's something that makes you believe that this is going to be a good season, a winning season, that this team can be the Arizona State that you mentioned months ago of what they did last year? What's something that you can now say after all these months, I believe, because of this?
Well, the biggest, hope is eternal, right? Everybody wants to have hope. And if there's no hope, it's kind of hard to think about, the positive things as much. But our guys have given each other and us hope because of the way they've worked. And, if there have been times where, geez, we need to work a little harder, be a little more physical, run a little faster, whatever. But they've really tried. The staff has done a great job. The players have adapted really well. And it's hard when you're talking about 79 new players, a bunch of new coaches, new system, new schemes, different ways of doing stuff. And it doesn't mean our way is the only way or the best way, but it's the way we do it. And the guys I'm really proud of the team for the way that they've adapted to new coaches and new systems. And I want them to play well because they've worked hard to earn that.
Rich, were you closer to that number of guys you wanted to win with than you were at the start of ball camp?
Yeah, stay tuned here. Ask me in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks or something. But there are, when we release a depth chart, and you see a lot of ors, like this guy or this guy, it's not like a strategic plan. Don't let them know who's starting. That it's truly or. It's him or him or him or him or him. Again, that's the, I don't want to say the drawback, but that's the other side of having so many new players in a limited amount of time. You can work with them a little bit of summer. We have the 4 weeks of training camp, but again, you don't know until you start playing games.
And you mentioned a few weeks. I mean, it used to be game 1, game 2. Is it more now, game 3, game 4, when you really find out about your team?
Well, you don't know. A guy may come out and just play so well and be so dynamic or whatever position is. Like, gosh, we thought he was pretty good. He's even better. Or we thought this guy was ready, and maybe he's not quite ready. And maybe take a couple more weeks for him to get ready. So that's what you find out in the beginning of each season, I think.
Rich, what do you remember about your first game as a player? Because the vast majority of this roster, this will be their first game. As a player.
Well, my first game I didn't play my freshman year because most of us got redshirted, and we played JV games, believe it or not. And we all lost a year of eligibility playing JV games. Gosh, we need to appeal that. I got to get that 1 year back. But my first game actually playing was my second year at Oklahoma, and that was a big upset win for us. And I remember the excitement of going out to Oklahoma, and then excitement of playing them, and then winning, and then coming back here and pulling in. I think we pulled into the blue lot because there were a bunch of fans waiting for us, and they were rocking the bus, and coaches weren't sure to let us off the bus, and they asked us what to do, and we said, "Let us off the damn bus." It was pretty exciting. So that was I actually had a pretty memorable first game playing experience here.
Have you had to, going into this week, say that there's one thing you're really feeling good about with this team ahead of the first game of the season, and one thing that you have as a question mark going in? What would those be?
Well, the question mark would certainly be the experience in playing in the system. There's a couple guys that have played in the system at a different school, but it's guys playing in offense, defense, special teams, completely new system for them. That's things that you have the most concern about. The excitement part is that these guys have worked. Football is a sport where you practice a whole lot more than you play games, and practices are so important, but the games are the critical piece, right? So you're hoping that all the work they put in practice, they get to go out on Saturday and enjoy it. And the best way to enjoy it is to play well.
Bringing up the uncertainty with Jamori, from a football standpoint, if you get a positive decision and for sure he can play this year, how difficult would it be for him to be able to learn what you want, fit in, figure it all out, and make an impact?
All those guys, the guys that the other 3 guys, and even some of the guys that maybe were injured now are healthy. They all work. Whether they're working on their own or working with our strength staff or working with trainers to get healthy, whatever the case may be. I mean, they're not like, totally new to everything. They've been around enough to kind of understand the culture. So I don't think twice about it. And we've got a lot of guys, and for the last 4 weeks, there's been 100-some guys practicing and at every position that we have, and so I'm not.
Zach Alley's defensive playbook being complex.
Yeah.
For a defensive player, would that be a hard adjustment?
Well, I think it's hard for anybody if you haven't had a lot of reps. And in answer to your question, it's.
Come in week 2, for example.
Everybody's a little bit different how quickly they learn. It's part of it's on coaches for us. For any player, whether it's a new guy or a guy that's been injured, and when you're injured, a lot of times you lose conditioning, you also lose reps, and so you got to start all over sometimes a little bit there. So we have to play that in mind. But that's coaching, and if you got 2 days to get a guy ready, work as hard as you can to get him ready. If he's not, then get him ready for the next one.
Do you have any clarity on when that uncertainty will clear up with him in particular?
No, I don't. Nope. No.
When you're open against an FCS team, do you let yourself maybe be a little more open-minded for position battles? Like you said, if every position's going to be or like if this was Pitt week 1, you'd probably need to be a little more.
No, typically, as I said, we're not really being coy when we're saying, oh, this guy or this guy, because it's not, and it's not like we're trying to play games with the players either. I mean, they'll know, and obviously when you only put 11 out there, who's going to be the guys. But we've got guys that are rotating now more than I've ever done before, from scout team to regular travel squad deals. They'll take 10 plays on a scout team, then they'll go on the other side and somebody will flip. And so I've never had this many guys that are rotating both ways, both things that do that. And that's just because, a lot of them have not separated themselves enough to be a surefire, he's the guy, he's the starter, the other guy will come in if he gets hurt or something like that. So it's truly pretty open in a lot of spots.
You mentioned going live with the quarterbacks at camp. Were you happy with what you got out of it?
Yeah, I'd probably we would have let live more if this was a veteran group of offense and defense. In other words, if we had the offensive line that's been in the system for a few years, had all the protections down, knew how to handle all the blitzes and stuff like that. But when you have defense has a variety of blitzes, and you got a new offensive lineman, and they're still learning the system, and there's more risk, I guess you could say, for quarterbacks. So we didn't go it live nearly as much as probably we would normally have done, but I don't question our quarterbacks' toughness or willingness to run or anything like that. So that's a good thing.
Because you're not able to do a ton live on special teams, is there kind of an element of concern or unknown?
That's always the biggest concern in the first game from a live standpoint, is you don't go live kickoff return, very much. And we've done some punt and punt block almost live, but the first game you'll find out. But you could practice with a certain intensity and get them ready. I've done it long enough that shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Rich, obviously you want to win every game, I get that, but just the difference between 0-1 and 1-0 after all this time, spring, summer, preseason, how much of a difference does that make?
Well, I don't really look at it from a record standpoint. I look at it more from a how you play standpoint, a performance standpoint. Everybody talks about the process, not the results. I mean, the results matter certainly, but like when we go out there to play, first thing I'm worried about is the opening kickoff or kickoff return, and then the next thing I'm worried about is the next play on offense or defense, and then the next 170 plays or whatever happens in the game. You live and die with each one of them, and then when that's over, you start getting ready for the next one. So I don't look at the results and what happens if this with this, and that's our first game.
Right. So, provided the performance is good or bad, just after waiting to play so long, and guys want to get out there and do very well and validate decisions to start them or play them too, is it that impactful? Does it have that long of an impact, or is it just it's over Saturday and you start anew when you come back on Monday?
Yeah, I think everything is evaluated. I don't want our players. They're going to be a little bit nervous anyway, and I want them to be a little nervous because it's important. But I want them also to enjoy playing, and I think they will. I mean, I think we'll find out how today and tomorrow's practice goes. Sunday's little practice was good. I think they feel excited. They feel fresh. I mean, today's going to be a physical practice. We'll see how kind of their intensity is there, but. I mean, everybody wants to play. I mentioned this the other day. The things that players want is they want to play games. I mean, that's why you come here. So they're going to get that opportunity on Saturday finally.
You want your players a little bit nervous. Go back to that day at Oklahoma. What do you remember about your first game other than just pulling in a lot? I mean, some things stand out.
Yeah, it was. I felt we felt good as a team coming in because they were running that option deal and we had a good plan for it and worked on it all camp, and I thought we had a pretty good football team. But I was happy to be on the travel squad. I was on special teams, and I was actually got in the game early at safety, and then I'm trying to remember. I think on the first play I was chasing someone downhill, and one of their big linemen clocked me, and he said something like, "Welcome to college football," and I'm like, okay. And then like it was maybe 3 or 4 plays later, they had the best that never was, the running back, Marcus Dupree. Remember him? And so we had heard about him, he was going to be this and that, and they ran a little option or something, and I hit him. Might have been a little bit late, but I hit him out of bounds. And I remember his goggles, because he wore goggles kind of sideways, and I stood up like a veteran, like, yeah, welcome to college football. like I had just learned that phrase like 10 minutes earlier. So that was my kind of introduction to college football. But it was, I just remember here, and I didn't even reflect on it because like a coach or a player, but then after the game, we win, and everybody's all excited. Come out here, and I'm a little guy from Granttown, West Virginia. He plays in Oklahoma, and we beat Oklahoma in a big upset. That was pretty memorable.
So you mentioned you were asked about do you allow yourself for a moment of emotion this week, first game back. How does it feel for you really to be approaching this first game back? You get to go out there and coach WVU football one more time. Well, hopefully a lot more than one more time.
Yeah, I hope. But yeah, like I said, it's a little surreal, but I don't, it's the first game of this new staff, and it's the first game for a lot of players. But I don't want to be. I said the nostalgia part. That's been like 4 or 5 months ago. You know what I mean? And I know it's been brought up more, and I understand that, but it's, I think it's. I'm like I said, I'm appreciative, I'm grateful, and the fans have been great, and we're working really hard. The only thing I could say that the staff, myself, the players, are what I want to do is have a certain work ethic and commitment to the program that our fans would appreciate, and from that standpoint, that's always going to happen. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity. And I'm hopeful I think our players will go out and have some fun and play really hard.
Rich, obviously winning every week is the most important thing, but because it's the FCS opponent, are there other things that you would gauge it to be a big win for you? Like if you're crawling through a game against an FCS opponent?
Every game is win. Every game.
But do you want to get more out of it or do certain things different in that game aside from just other games that you would take a W?
No, they got players on scholarship. They're going to play really. This is going to be a huge game for them. They're going to play really hard. I always looked at and I don't even look past the first quarter or the second quarter or after half. What's the next play? And we went in the next play, and then what's the next play after that? And then when the game is over, did it turn out like we wanted to? That's not coach speak. That's just the way we've always done it.
Well, you were once on the other side of that. How did you approach it when you were going into a game and you had a team that had all the resources and you're going up against?
Yeah, you wanted to have something to prove, right? Yeah. And that when we were a group of 5 at Jack State playing Power Fours, or when I was at Glenville State and we had 12 scholarships playing 1AAs that had 70 scholarships or what have you, couldn't wait to play those games. Man, it was exciting, and you got a chance to prove yourself. So I know their team will be excited and have a chance. But we have a lot of guys that got something to prove too, right? And coaches and players included.
Rich, how early this week do you figure out what your first offensive play call is going to be, and then when do you start scripting out maybe that first drive?
Yeah, we won't script we will script openers, like these are the plays we want to see early in the game, 10 or 12 plays we want to see early. But the down and distance situation dictates what we'll call, and how they play in the first few plays will dictate how we call too. So we don't have there'll be a few plays that we're obviously going to open up with, and I won't decide that probably until Thursday or Friday, if then.
Beginning of fall camp, and now it's made the biggest stride going into this game on Saturday?
Well, you'd have to pick the groups that had very little experience coming back, which would be O-line, D-line, linebackers, secondary, and wide receivers, and running backs, and quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, the O-line was has the least experience of all of them. I'm trying to think, maybe, yeah. I would probably say the O-line had the least experience, so they had the furthest to go, and they've done a really good job.
Places that you've been, obviously you've learned different things that have got you to where you are. What did you take from Jacksonville State that can help you now?
Well, yeah, from the opening standpoint last year, and then the opener we had a couple years ago when we were transitioning up to Division 1A. I have notes, and I look at them a little bit, but every year, every team is different. Every personality of every team is different, including this year's team here. So, and I try to learn, like, I'll learn something every day. I'll learn something from today's practice that we've got to do to make us better tomorrow. You know what I mean? I think that's the one part as coaches sometimes, and I've been guilty of this past, like, hey, this is the way we've done it, and this is the way it is, and no matter what, this is what we're going to do. And I think you can become too stubborn and not willing to adapt. Now, that doesn't mean you adapt your culture or your methodology or anything like that, but you got to adapt. Okay, maybe this worked with this group of guys, but not with this team, So I think that's constantly part of our coach's evaluation. Like, this play was really good for us, but our guys don't really execute this play very well, so do we need to look at something else?